we place our hope and trust in His mercy as we present this song, Betapa Hatiku, from the Catholics at Home Virtual Choir.
Betapa hatiku berterima kasih Tuhan, Kau mengasihiku,
Kau memilikiku.
Hanya ini Tuhan persembahanku, segenap hidupku, jiwa dan ragaku. Takkan ku miliki harta kekayaan
yang sungguh berarti ku persembahkan. Hanya ini Tuhan permohonanku,
Terimalah Tuhan persembahanku.
pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu, seumur hidupku.
betapa hatiku berterima kasih Tuhan, Kau mengasihiku, Kau memilikiku. Hanya ini Tuhan persembahanku, segenap hidupku, jiwa dan ragaku. Takkan ku miliki harta kekayaan yang cukup berarti untuk persembahkan. Hanya ini Tuhan permohonanku,
Terimalah Tuhan persembahanku.
pakailah hidupku sebagai alatku, seumur hidupku. Hanya itu Tuhan persembahanku, segenap hidupku, jiwa dan ragaku.
Takkan ku miliki harta kekayaan
Berarti ku persembahkan.
hanya ini Tuhan permohonanku. Terimalah Tuhan persembahanku, pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu, seumur hidupku. Pakailah hidupku sebagai alatmu, seumur hidupku.
Seumur hidupku.
Very good morning, all you lovely people who are watching in from Facebook and from YouTube, and welcome to another installment of Catholics at Home Live. Good morning, Father Clarence.
Hey, good morning, Patrick.
How are you, Father?
I'm good, Patrick. I'm good. And what are you?
Got your coffee, yeah? I'm good.
I had coffee early in the morning already, so just some
Yes, sir.
plain water now.
Plain water,
Throughout
lah.
the day, try to remind myself to drink more water.
Yeah, very hot day,
Yeah,
It's been
I
very
mean,
warm
we're
these last few days.
kind of having erratic weather. Yeah, it's last week has been like raining. This week has been hot. Anyway, we can't complain, lah. I mean, thankfully it's not snowing yet.
Yeah. Just like the song just now, Betapa hatiku berterima kasih Tuhan, because we need sun also, lah.
Of course,
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget the beautiful things we receive, and we focus on all those problems, all those difficulties. We forget to thank God for the realities of those little things that we receive. That sometimes we take for granted so many ways, isn't it?
Yeah. It's important to have that great gratitude, lah. So otherwise, it's gonna go mad. I mean, there'll always be a reason to be upset. There'll always be a reason to be disappointed. But yeah, we have to remind ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, too much sun, we complain. Too much rain, we complain. Too much traffic, we complain. So sometimes I think God also is confused. Now, people never stop complaining, isn't it? So I think we count our blessings. I always say count our blessings, and we are grateful to. And yeah, I mean, this podcast is a blessing in many ways. I look forward to it Saturday mornings. I'm sure many of our viewers, wherever I've been going, people are saying, "Oh, Father, we know you. We have seen you. We have seen your team." It's quite affirming what we have been doing. I think we are episode number 112, 113 or something like that. I've lost track already. Patrick?
I was lost track.
So
we have to check with our back office people.
Yeah, we've been going on for about 100 weeks. Yeah, that's amazing. So it's a blessing in itself, and I'm sure.
Amen.
Maybe we want to call out some of our early morning viewers here who come regularly to join us. We just say hi to some of them.
Yes, for Philomena Peterson, she's definitely one of our regulars. Good morning from Shah Alam. Pam Fernandez from California. Wow.
Yeah, and she tunes in every week. Amazing, Pam.
Awesome.
Thank you for following us.
Andrew Lim says, Father, we are not a complaining people. Nice.
Thankfully,
good
thank
morning,
God.
Andrew. Kim Ang, Cecilia O, good morning. Consuela, Kumang, Daisy, good morning. Katerina Bundak, good morning. Sim Liman, good morning. Rita Usun, good morning. Good morning, Jacinta Paul and Balang Mali. Laura Joseph. We've got all these lovely people. Rani Kathy Daniel, good morning. So we're so glad to have all of you, and even more, it doesn't mean if you don't comment, we don't shout out to you. We're grateful that you are joining us and waiting eagerly for this installation of Catholics at Home. And this morning, we actually have a young person who is joining us, and we always say the young are.
Patrick, are you saying that we are not young anymore?
Well, my whites, I know I'm
a younger person.
Less young, younger. Yes. Younger from the reverse.
From our perspective. All right. Yeah.
So we have a fantastic session today with a young person who is a full-time worker in the church. This is a rare commodity because there's so much of potential in Malaysia to earn money and to go out into the world, and yet we have this group of people who are, and an increasing group of people who are going into full-time work for the Catholic Church. And it's an amazing vocation, and it's an amazing calling. So do we want to bring her in already, Father?
Sure, yeah, let's welcome. Hi,
Yes.
Hi, good morning, Jacinta.
Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, Father.
Good morning, Jacinta. How are you?
I'm doing great. And how are you?
You've got your coffee there, I think.
Yes, I do.
Correct. Yes. All right. Good. So, Jacinta, maybe you want to welcome first to the Catholics at Home podcast. And we're excited to have you on board to share with us a little bit about yourself, your background. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your family and anything interesting about yourself. That could excite our viewers.
Okay, hi. Thank you for having me on. So I grew up in Gombak. Maybe some of you might know where Batu Caves is, like quite close to that area. I still live there. I'm a middle child, and I have an older sister and a younger brother, and now even blessed with a brother-in-law. And I'm very close to my parents, hence why I'm still living at home. And I actually studied English language and literature. So prior to coming on to work in Asayo, I was teaching for a couple of years. Yeah, so I started working in Asayo in 2016. But before that, off and on during my uni years and all that, I used to volunteer since 2008 in Asayo. So you could say I've grown up with Asayo a little bit. I'm very thankful for my experience here, and I think that what also led me to come back and serve. Yeah.
Jacinta, you keep saying the word Asayo. Of course, I know what it means. I'm sure Patrick knows, but for all our viewers out there who don't know, what does
Yes.
Asayo mean?
Okay. Asayo is the Archdiocesan Single Adult and Youth Office of the Archdiocese of Kuala Lumpur. And we are what's in the background here, and we are basically the bishop's arm, to assist and animate for young people in the diocese. Yeah.
Yeah, so before we talk a little bit about youth ministry, I mean, youth ministry is so fluid over the years. I mean, I was part of a youth ministry. I'm sure Patrick was part of a youth ministry also. We all were in different in different churches, different parishes. But before we talk a little bit about youth ministry in today's context, I'm sure it's quite different, Patrick, from what we were and what it is today.
Very different. Very
different, yeah. But before, let's talk a little bit about yourself. Now, Jacinta, I mean, like Patrick said earlier, the excitement of a corporate world, of doing a lot of other exciting things possibly in the world. What made you you said you were a teacher, you were teaching. What made you want to commit yourself as a full-time, and that also a full-time youth pastoral worker? Was there a calling? Was there something that you felt, kind of drawn to?
Yeah. I remember a specific incident that sort of triggered this whole domino effect and ended up in me joining Asayo full time. I was teaching in a particular university, and there was this student of mine who had a breakdown in class when I was giving them a quiz. And after that, there was
must have been a very hard quiz you gave them, huh?
I don't think so, Father. It was language, but yeah. So I sort of assessed, okay, what could I do? And talking with some of the senior teachers at that time, I was quite a junior lecturer, and also talking to my dean and talking to the senior teachers. They were like, "Oh, Jacinta, I know we are limited in what we can do for them. We can help them, but at the end of the day, we got to maintain that professional boundary." And after that, there were a few other instances where I could see my students struggling. And it made me think, is this what my life is going to be like, just watching from a distance, as they struggled. But at that time, I was also volunteering in Asayo, and suddenly, the pastoral workers then and Father Greg, our former director, sort of asked, Jacinta, why don't you join, full time? My loved ones were like, no, just volunteer lah, don't go there, But there was something that kept drawing me in, to take this road less traveled. So I sort of just took the leap. Yeah, that's how I sort of ended up here, yeah.
But of course, there are so many, you talk about, this experience of encountering people literally in the field and trying to respond to him. But I'm sure when you're growing up years, I'm sure there were the seeds that were planted, by God through many other people. If I were to ask you, who are the people who inspired you, or who are the people who inspire you today? Uh, either they are alive or no, or either you have met them or not.
Yeah.
Any person who was inspired you.
I think no one comes into this work knowing what exactly it is, because it's not like something we can go and intern for or figure out. And I think each person, coming into full-time ministry, they are still discovering what they are called even within that vocation. But I was quite fortunate. No, I have really good examples in my life, my parents and even parental figures who were always serving in some way. But just Father, because you asked about a particular person, I think my late godfather was somebody that sort of inspired me. I remember following him because he's from a small parish in Perak. I remember following him as he went to teach Sunday school. I remember us hosting Christmas gatherings in his house because he worked in an estate for the estate workers and their kids, and then going and giving out rations to families. So I believe that all of these seeds were planted by him in a very distinct way. I think he took his job as my godparent like very seriously. So I would say, if there's one person, it would be him. Yeah.
Oh, so that means you actually looked at that the element of service. He inspired you in the element of serving the community.
Yeah.
But I was actually very curious. Why? I mean, when you serve, you can serve different types of community. Why the young people? What made the difference for you?
Yeah, so I think being drawn to teaching and having that specific focus, and having those skills, how to engage with the younger crowd, I think was one reason. But I'm always so thankful to my youth experience in Asayo. I'm a very introverted person. I know it doesn't seem that way, but I was so quiet, in my teenage years, and journeying with the sisters and the priests and the mentors in Asayo as a youth sort of like allowed me to come out of my shell and also even choose teaching as a path. I think things would have been very different if I wasn't in ministry, um, you know, during those formative years, lah, I would say. Yeah.
No, it's very interesting. You say you are introverted, huh? I do know.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people think that introverts are not people that you will see in the forefront or involved in something, very visible.
Yeah.
Especially like yours would be at archdiocese level, and I'm sure you also serve. I mean, at some parish level.
Yes.
Um, you were mentioning that earlier offline. You were mentioning that you're from the parish of
Saint Joseph in Sentul.
St. Joseph's Parish in Sentul. Okay. So
Yeah.
great. So it's a big shout out to all the parishioners of St. Joseph's Sentul. So you've got your home girl here. I had another question. Being involved in this kind of ministry, one of the things that, and especially when you're talking about young people, what are the things that excite you most about serving in this ministry?
Um, I think when I hear a young person share, about their encounter with God, um, and sort of like also in that context, me just as a third person, meaning that this young person is sharing their encounter with another. I think that is one of those moments that I keep in my memory bank to remind myself, like, okay, I can continue when days are tough. So these are one of the things. And another thing is also like young people have so much goodness in them. So when I see a young person stepping out of their comfort zone and sharing their goodness, I think that in itself gives me so much joy and really excites me, to go further and to do more and to continue.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned the connectivity, connectivity, and helping people step out of their comfort zone. You
Yeah.
see, that's all. I mean, it's really. I'm sure it is very liberating, right? It's a very liberating experience to see someone fulfill their potential. But all ministries, and I'm sure every scenario that each one of us are, you've got your ups and downs.
Yeah.
Correct? You've got your ups and downs. So maybe you could share some of the main challenges um, from your experience, that the young people face, maybe with regards to the church. Let's talk about the church that we are all part of. What are some of the main challenges that our young people are facing in your experience?
I think maybe some people might find this a little controversial, but I think it is going back to our history. This model of accompaniment. I think the very perfect example is Jesus himself. I think there's a lack of that for young people in the church today. I think we are very busy doing very big things in parishes. Um, I speak about, mentors, leaders, the clergy, religious, all the different parts and components of the body of the church. I like to call them friends of young people who are invested, in, wanting our young people to do well and to be good. I think sometimes we are very caught up with all the big things and the programs and the events, and we forget the very real element of accompanying them. So this is one of the challenges I see young people having, because they want to come, but they feel like maybe is there really a space for me there, and I need so many things, I need to learn, I need to grow, but who will teach me, who will tell me? So this is one thing that I find so very crucial and essential at the moment. There are serious attempts. I will acknowledge that there are many who are doing their part, but I still think there's room for more. Definitely, yeah.
You talk about accompaniment, and that has been something that Pope Francis has been talking about at every level. Whether it's
Yes,
family, children, or young people. Now, I want to take you back 4 years ago. I think you were quite involved towards the synod on the young people. Now, of
yes,
course, it's at the back of our memory. Many people probably have forgotten. The pandemic has kind of overtaken everything, and we have forgotten an important event. And one of the things I remember reading in the document that came after for the young people is it's about their thirst for holiness. There seems to be among the young people. We always think the young people are very fluid. They're all excited, and but he seems to say that there's this inner thirst for holiness, and seem to be looking for it. um, do you see that, Jacinta, in that sense, in your work with young people today here?
yeah,
I mean, of course, the word holiness, each one of us has got a certain perception of what holiness means.
yes.
And I don't want to kind of, put it within a box to say that holiness means lots of prayers, or holiness means lots of this, but a general thirst for an encounter with God, if I may kind of elaborate a little bit about young people.
Yeah. I think you're right, Father. I think how young people are sort of expressing this thirst for holiness is this desire to be close to Jesus, and it's always something that's very in my face when I encounter them, and when we talk about problems and challenges, and we go to the root of it. There's always this desire to come back to God, to be close to Him. In our recent Asayo programs, we had the opportunity for confession, and we sort of budgeted time enough for like maybe 20 or 30%, and it turned out 80%, 90% want to come for confession, and the priests were overwhelmed, and we had to go into the wee hours of the night to accommodate everyone. And I would say that was a learning for me, but also a great testament of faith for the young people and their desire to be so close to Jesus and want that holiness. So that was, this happened recently, just 2-3 months ago. So what you're saying, Father, it's really a real thing. And I know maybe a lot of people think, oh, young people are far away from church, or distant. Lately we've been hearing a lot of these things, maybe because the numbers of young people in church don't reflect that. But I think creating that opportunity, maybe there's something holding them back. So in offering confession, that reconciliation, yeah, I was just so in awe of how many of them wanted to go. and we announced, I said, oh, some of you can go back to the parish, we might not be able to accommodate everyone, but the line did not reduce. It was really inspiring to me. Yeah, this experience.
And you think from your own working experience with young people, do you think that this comes from a kind of a they're out in the world, and there's so many influences and so many complexities of daily life they encounter. Maybe it's noise, or whether it's the demands of career, of studying and all that. Do you think that it's a kind of a response to that, and that young people are looking for some experience of God, to run away from those realities, and they want that space, that time in the church, to be able to meet God. And I think that is the challenge. That's been my experience also. So sometimes we end up flooding them with programs after programs, that maybe that's not, I don't know, because I always say that I've gone past that stage of being in that age of the young people, and I sometimes I quite wonder. I don't even pretend to understand. I try, because it's so difficult. But that whole idea of an experience of God, and finding it in a place, in a church, and for me that's holiness, isn't it? I mean, that's holiness. How they find a response to that thirst is what holiness. Because as I said earlier, sometimes holiness, we kind of we straitjacket it and say, our young people are not in the BEC, our young people are not in church, our young people are not here, not there. But listening to you, it seemed to say that they look for something. And kind of related to that, what kind of, are there programs, are there avenues within, from your own experience in your working with youth, for them to encounter this, to encounter God?
I think right now, for me personally, I find that we have to create space and opportunity for young people to come and minister to their peers, and to even find solutions for themselves. Because I think there's this disparity, those who are animating, the elders, people who will love young people, we always think, okay, let's do this, and we try to give them all the formation and we think this is the answer. But just looking at it now, even more so than ever in a post-pandemic kind of climate, I think they are discovering again, what they need. And I think for us, animators and leaders to respond is to give them that space and opportunity to find out and to do things and to explore different forms of spirituality, different forms of activities to form a bond with each other, friendship with Jesus and friendship with one another. I think that is a good way for us as the church to respond to them. And not be afraid of something less structured, right? So when we ask our youth ministries, to leaders to come up with the plans, must have all the objectives and all that, which is good. And sometimes the method also, we want something very structured, which can be a little suffocating for young people, because they are, like you said, Father, they are just encountering so much in life, and they are constantly connected to work and studies, and the demands are so great. So they want that looseness, that flexibility. And so we as leaders need to adapt and be flexible in return to respond to them, and give them that space. I think programs are good, but they are not the solution, for the what the young person needs, I believe. Yeah.
As you were saying that, I was just taken back to my own youth days, and this is quite funny. And today I always try to remember that as a priest also. When I was the youth ministry, I don't know that Patrick will share this. So whenever, we talk about the youth, one of the things is, we see the youth, but we don't hear them, especially in decision-making bodies. So when it comes to, gotong royong, or moving the tables, we are the youth ministry,
Yes.
When it's manual labor, when there's involved, manual labor, everybody looks at, the youth ministry will take care of it. Does that still happen today, Jacinta? I mean, have we moved away from that, of giving young people leadership roles in our parishes, from your own experience, and how do we encourage it also?
I think there was a good movement right before the pandemic. I could see a lot of positive changes. I don't want to use the word regress, but I think we've regressed a little bit because there was a time where they needed volunteers in church to be the first responders during the pandemic, and they were like, oh, we need the young people because they're the most healthy. So it sort of went back to how to say, young people, because we have all this energy and we won't fall sick so often, like we can be the ones, taking the risk, which I think that was a valid a way to go about it. But right now, I think it's still happening in some parishes when we encounter our leaders as Asayo. They share like, oh, we are just allowed to do this and do that, or the decision was made without us, and finally, like, we have to be in charge of cleanup crew. They do it openly but and willingly, but at the same time they're kind of disappointed that this was what they were asked to do, as opposed to what they could do and could be in the larger scale of things. But yeah, I see some leaders being very conscious and intentional, and trying to go away from that. But I hope more, a bit more conscious of these things, lah, Father, definitely.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions that some of the viewers might have, because when we talk about young people and we talk about the word youth, in different contexts in Malaysia, youth can be even up to 40 years old. So maybe when we talk about Asayo, would you be able to frame for us how you regard your target group?
Okay. Yeah.
How old?
So for Asayo, at the moment, we start at 18 years old. So 18 to 24 is our youth campus student category, and 25 up to 39 is our young adult. And even within that young adult, there's some differences. We try to bracket it so that the relatability, it's a bit closer when the age group is a bit more specific. But that's pretty much how we are. It's a very large segment, but we try to group them based on the state of life. So let's say a 21-year-old is working, so we allow them to come into that young adult space, working adult space, because that's where they relate, and but let's say a 27-year-old is still studying, they could still go for campus programs. So it's a bit flexible and adaptable in that way. Yeah.
How about those below 18?
Below 18 is in the Archdiocese of Kuala Lumpur, is still under the purview of the parish catechetical ministry, and perhaps locally in each parish, different ministries exist. Some do have teen ministries or junior youth ministries, which are really thriving, and they work hand in hand with catechetical. But on the diocesan front, at the moment, we are still at this bracket. But we are working to be more inclusive, because our young people are progressing and maturing much earlier in life. So do pray for us, and we hope that this can be adjusted. In Rome, they stopped the youth category at 33, I believe. So it's about adjusting and adapting to the times as well. So yeah, you might hear something new coming from youth ministry in Malaysia very soon. So hopefully, yeah,
But
those.
Patrick, they're hoping they would extend it to include your age also. Sorry, I don't think you're going to get. You and I are not going to get there. Yeah, we should aspire to stay below the senior citizens bracket.
Yeah, because you know what? One thing that Jacinta brought up, which I thought was it's very important that we adjust that age, because usually, people get married already by the time they are in their late 20s or 30s, and if they still fall under the category of youth, definitely we need a space for young people, or singles, definitely. But it doesn't have to be age related, or you can actually break them down, because nowadays. This is going to lead me to my next question, because nowadays we have different types of ways to connect, right? And I'm sure, Jacinta, this is something that you, as a youth pastoral worker, you encounter this on a daily basis. We talk about connectivity earlier with our young people, determining a connection. What about social media? What role does social media? I mean, I speak from my experience, and I'm sure many of our viewers also have this kind of engagement. My daughter is 11 years old. No, she's 13 years old. Aloma.
Oh,
She's
that's going
13
to
years
get
old.
in trouble afterwards.
Hazel's going to give me, I'm going to get in trouble with Hazel. So she's 13 years old, and her connection is here, a lot of the times, the number of hours that is spent on the phone and to connect with friends and to connect with the world out there, and the amount of information that comes in, it's no longer through our parishes alone. You know what I mean? So, what kind of content would, as a youth pastoral worker, what kind of content do you think that our young people should have? Do we have enough of it? What kind of content would you look forward to that would help in your ministry? That would help to bring that connection, that would help to catechize our young people from Malaysian perspective, from Malaysian perspective.
Thank you for that question. It's a really good one. I think that at the moment, right, I think we are oversaturated with a lot of visual media and a lot of things that we read online. And there's this yearning or an interest to see the actual people behind those posts. We find that even in Asayo, we have like 1,000 over followers. When we put content of us talking or interviewing somebody or going somewhere where we are visible, those are our posts that do the best, like people engage the most. So you can see this ironic desire actually to connect with people, but sadly the devices are the ones that are sort of inhibiting this process, because we are just text people. We just send text here and there, and we don't really know the person. And I even see that there's this thing of like, I want to know this person on a personal level, but there's only so much social media or words can communicate. So that video media, like TikTok and all, that's like becoming the thing. It's no longer Facebook. Even Instagram now is like on the bridge, like it's young people are slowly going to move away from there. So yeah, they want to connect to persons, the face, to know who that person is. But there's sort of this, I guess we've become accustomed to it being through a screen. So for me personally, I try to sort of counter that, and I found myself this year when we started having physical programs, having to do this kind of like matchmaking kind of thing. Not matchmaking in the sense, but like friend making, So I have to go between two young people. I'll be like, hey, have you met this guy? And then I'm like, hey, have you met this guy? And make them talk to each other when they could be standing, three people standing alone in a space, but they'll be like on their phones. So that conscious effort for us, as people who love them, who want them to learn what is human connection about, to like, hey, don't forget, you all are physically present in a space. You can talk to people. It's not scary. It's going to be awkward, but it's fine. And then we'll get past it. So as much as we find that, okay, this is what they are on the phone, I find that we as the church should also think about the goodness that we should allow them to discover in being connected with people as persons, on a real, authentic level. Yeah.
Now you talk about this digital gadget syndrome, it doesn't just affect young people, it affects every one of us, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, all of us, every person. But Jacinta, you have been working now, how many years have you been with Asayo already? Now you were there since
6 years, Father.
6 years already. Now, as we come out of this pandemic, of course, some parishes had, good youth ministries and some were struggling, some don't have. After the pandemic, everything like almost like a reset button, having to restart everything. So for example, from your experience, parishes who don't have a youth ministry, or parishes who are trying to revive their youth ministry, what would your advice be? What would you say to them? How do they go about it?
Father, just now you mentioned the synod on young people. And after that synod, the Holy Father came out with this apostolic exhortation, and he says that it's a letter to young people and people who love young people. Christus Vivit. There he gives this very simple model. I think we've used this model so much, Jesus walking with the disciples to Emmaus. I think, he highlights, certain things within that paragraph. I think it's in chapter 7, 230, something like that. So those of you watching can go and look that up. Jesus went and he met the disciples, and he understood where they were. Even though they didn't recognize him, he didn't leave them. He continued walking with them, and he proclaimed the word to them, and he waited patiently, I think us as animators, as leaders, even youth leaders, I think this experience of going back to the basics, how do we encounter one another? How do we give opportunity for a young person to find Jesus, to recognize Jesus in that interaction? I think that's important. And it's not so much about what theological topic or scriptural topic can we talk about today, but how are we meeting the young person where they are at, given the distance that we've had from ministry, perhaps during the pandemic. So it's more about giving those opportunities, time and space at a more flexible approach, So it starts with that friendship with Jesus, that friendship with one another. I know it sounds very simplistic, like, oh, so they're going to come to church and they're just going to do this, they're going to have a coffee and just talk. But there's so much richness that can happen in that interaction. I think we got to change the way we look at it. And this model of Jesus encountering them, and when they broke bread and they recognized him finally, then they realized, what had happened to them. So we are waiting with bated breath and hoping, that the young people in this interaction, in that authentic friendship that they experience in ministry, that they will also encounter Jesus. So try to start simple, start small, and don't be, discouraged by the lack of numbers. Start somewhere. You have to start. I think that's my advice for.
So if I hear you, I think the starting point is to be able to get them together, to find an occasion to bring them together, not to pull chairs or to do some gardening, but find something that would create some interest with them, whether it's coffee or whether it is either in church or somewhere else. Also is possible, I guess, nowadays with a lot of cafes out there.
Yes.
To provide the space, I mean, that will be the starting point for our young people, to encourage them to come together. I think it's very true, because as you were speaking, I was just reflecting. Sometimes we call them to church, and then we have got this whole program set out for them. Okay, 8 o'clock this, 9 o'clock this, 10 o'clock. I'm going to give you an input on this and another input on that, and then at the end of the day, they say, no, I'm not going to come back again. But to be able to afford the space, that to be able for them also to write their own agenda, isn't it? I mean, what they want to do, and I think that's part of the whole empowering of our young people, youth ministry. But I think you rightly said, I mean, working with young people, and I've known that for many years, it's always challenging. It can always be frustrating also, isn't it? I mean, you organize something and they don't turn up, and then it ends up people being frustrated, and people kind of say, I give up, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But I think it's the, like what you said, the Holy Father says, it's accompanying them, walking with them. Just keep trying, isn't it? Just keep trying over and over, see how we can go. Yeah. So to the parishes out there who are, who are listening here this morning, create space, create opportunities for them to come together. Don't just use them for manual labor, but use them for, bring them, because they themselves bring great richness to the life of the church. I always think that when people say the youth are the leaders of the future, I think that's quite cliched. They're the leaders of today themselves in their own right. And I think I myself as youth was a member of my own parish pastoral council. As a young person, I must have been I must be in my early 20s or even less than that. So I think the opportunities, the space that given. Now I want to move into something a little bit, probably a bit more controversial, Jacinta, and hopefully it doesn't put you off. And this is something that that was talked about in the synod in 2018.
Yeah.
And it was recognized. It was recognized, and this is something that sometimes we shy to talk about. We run away from it, but at the synod, it came out very clearly, and it talks about young people and sexual identity.
Yeah.
The struggle sometimes that they have because of the different orientations, and at least the Holy Father, he probably didn't give an answer that some people wanted, but
Yeah.
he heard them, and it's finding ways how to engage. uh, is this something that you encounter also working with young people here? Sometimes we think this problem is it's a Western problem. I'm asking this because maybe it requires a response from us too, here
Yeah.
as the local church. What's your take on this?
This is this is definitely something that we encounter a lot, Father. I think even to the level of young people who they themselves have these experiences, but the thing that the media and maybe some people with more conservative understandings, they're like, it's a very like a tough conversation to have, I would say. And a lot of times, like, it becomes a very excluding conversation. So when I do encounter this, I always remember that this person, whoever is sharing a different view than the church, is still loved by God so much. There's no difference between me and them. And at the end of the day, I want them to experience God's love, and I will tell them openly, I don't have a clear cut answer for you that you want to hear, or rather, that seems like what the world is saying. But there's just so much in our faith, and the church has to offer us so much that we can continue to understand one another, relate to one another. At the end of the day, it's an exchange of love between persons. Like, how do we accompany one another, even in our disagreements or differences in the way we look at things when it comes to this topic. A lot of young people do express their frustration towards the church, thinking that it's very backward, it's not progressive, it's not moving with the times. But at the same time, even in their discontentment and whatever they've expressed, they are still continuing to serve, they are still continuing to love God. They're trying their best to live those values that the gospel teaches us. So I think there's so much hope, and there's also a lot of resources, with courage and encourage to learn the Catholic perspectives on these matters of sexual identity and orientation. And even as parents, I feel for parents now. We always talk about the young people themselves, but the parents who are experiencing this with their young persons in their home, there's also a need to reach out to them and see how they can be included, because most of the time, when these issues confront a family, like, the family just leaves, because they feel that they are excluded by virtue of loving a person who has these experiences, which is not the truth of what our church wants. So I think there's a lot of room to learn together and discover properly what the church actually wants to do, and how every young person is loved by God regardless. Yeah. I hope I answered your question, Father.
I think that's an important starting point, isn't it? I mean, if
Yeah.
we have a mindset that is legalistic,
Yes.
then we reduce the questions or the conversations to things like, okay, people with different sexual orientation or identity, can they receive communion? So we bring it down to a very legalistic, can they do this, can they do that? And I think that's the struggle that I think sometimes maybe we need to take a step back, and a lot of the conversations, people become unhappy because it boils down to this kind of do's and don'ts in the church.
Yes.
But I think the important thing here is to be able to recognize the differences, and to be the starting point is that those conversations can come later, but those
Yeah.
conversations cannot be the starting point of engaging. Isn't it? The starting point must be somebody who is loved by God, and somebody who can find a place in the community, in
Yes.
God. And I think that's the narrative that, because I think sometimes we short circuit. Everybody wants to know, can or not, can or not, can this one cannot, this one cannot, this one can or not, and we just push people away. we just push people away by making our own judgments. But I think the starting point is, how do we find a place for a variety of people in the church? And everyone must find a little corner somewhere in the church, just like how you and I find a little corner in our own parishes, in our own church. And I think that's the point that we need to drive home, isn't it? To start off, to say that, hey, everybody's got a space. Come on, come to church. You have a space here, and maybe I always keep saying, drop those eyes of judgment. Like, judgment belongs to God alone, and let's learn how to love one another. Now, interestingly, some people are asking, things like, if you are not in that age bracket of the youth, can they serve in the youth ministry? I don't know. What's your take? Sometimes I think maybe we should allow the youth to work for themselves. Youth for youth,
Yes.
like sometimes, what's your?
I think it's a very, very testy question, Father, because people get a little sensitive, because this desire to serve even beyond from a different age group is because they love young people. It's coming from a good place. But I really believe that we should allow young people to be in that space, to learn leadership, to do for themselves and for each other. Until today, a lot of people come and approach Asayu and they want to do a lot of things, wonderful things. And we always direct them back to the parish, to the community where they are at. Because, you sometimes you do things at a macro level and things get diluted, and, it doesn't meet the goal that you achieved in a smaller community, in your local community, in fact. I believe there's space for everyone. I understand maybe those who maybe are beyond the age but maybe have not moved on to family life. They are wondering, where do I belong? There's a space for you, and contact Asayo. We will connect you to those spaces and perhaps even help you start a space like this in your parish. And it's all about, growing together. And just because something doesn't exist, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't, fill that space up. I think the Catholic Church is so beautiful, and you can find different expressions of being and serving and being community within the bigger parish. So those who are asking this question, you can contact us. We will try our best to connect you or even journey with you. And this was something we had previously in Asayo, the lay single ministry. But now it's sort of gone into the parishes. So do contact us, follow us on social media. Yeah.
I think that's the point, isn't it, Jacinta? I mean, I was just thinking,
Yes.
of course, people have a lot to offer, and we are grateful to that. But sometimes I also think that we have a lot to learn from the young people, isn't it?
Yes.
Listen to them. Sometimes we come with a mindset, I have plenty to offer you. I want to give you all this. My years of experience, my years of wisdom, I've got all this worked out in my head already. I want to share this with you. And that in itself can be an obstacle, isn't it? I mean, if we don't
Yes.
stop and listen to, sometimes we have to learn from them. We have to listen to them. And I think that's what the whole synod process was in 2018.
Yes.
The Holy Father wanted to hear the young people, what they say, and how the church can respond to them. So I mean, we are grateful to the many people who have so much of excitement to say, I know I have all this. It's like I've worked this all out in my head already. Okay, I know everything. The youth lack. So we end up saying that, the youth lack experience, and the youth cannot be depended on. The youth got no commitment. We end up saying things like this, and I hear this in parish councils who say that they can't. But perhaps we need to. I don't know. I mean, it's a struggle. It's not easy. As a priest, as a pastor, I know it's not easy. Sometimes to allow them, and I've tried to encourage as much as possible. And I'm sure my youth are listening today, and they're going to hold me to this. To sometimes to do it and allow them to make the mistakes and to learn from it. And I think that's what we lack, in the sense that the courage to let them make the mistakes.
Yes.
And then guide them back on the right path. And I think the learning curve is a lot better that way. I don't know. This is what I think anyway.
Yeah. I agree with you, Father, wholeheartedly. You couldn't have said it better. I think the big apprehension or the reservation like of our leaders to really give them full reign, the young people or young leaders, is that, oh, the missteps that might happen, I think, how wrong could they go? Maybe it's a program that we imagined differently, and it was something that we didn't expect, and maybe it didn't turn out the best way that it could. But then the young leaders would learn from this, and whatever said and done, there's goodness received by the people in the ministry. So we have to allow that space, for them to learn, and it's going to be better the next time around. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, thank you for saying that, Mother.
One of the things that, because after the pandemic, once we opened up the churches and we started going back to church, I've had a chance to even engage with some of our youth pastoral workers in our parish. And I wanted to hear from your perspective, Jacinta, because you're connected with all of the different youth pastoral workers across the diocese, and probably you have insight into the other dioceses, and what's happening on the ground after the pandemic, right? After the pandemic, when we're starting to reopen the churches, what are some of the challenges and some of the good things that are happening in the parishes that you could share with us, to encourage the young people that are watching, and so to encourage the others who are the parents and all, to know that, hey, look, these things are happening, it's good, and of course these are the challenges that they are facing, and maybe some way we can help and support. Maybe you could share some of the things that are happening.
Okay. So some nationally, we have very good cooperation between the youth officers and ministries in Malaysia, because we come under the Episcopal Commission for Youth under Archbishop Simon Poe. And so, because of the movement of young people between states, for study, for work, we sort of try to allow, or we create this platform where young people can inform their incoming diocese that they are coming there, so that someone can engage them and connect them to the community. So when previously, we used to put up posters in parishes all around the country and have a very visible thing going on. But because masses were not physical for a long time, a lot of young people sort of moved around during the pandemic and sort of maybe lost touch with the church. So now figuring out where these pockets of people are is quite challenging. And also, in the past 2 years, when young people did not have very good communitarian experiences, and even their Sunday school is online, so we find that even getting confirmed and coming out to uni, there's just so much to be desired for their foundation in the faith, so we find that as youth ministers, as youth pastoral workers around the country, we are having to make some very intentional decisions, like how do we have to cover some of those things that maybe they don't know, like, what's my confirmation about, like what's going to happen, like this, asking these questions, like they don't really know sometimes. So we acknowledge that these were some of the challenges that came up because of the pandemic, and the lack of ability to come to church and to do these things the normal way. That being said, because of this boom in the online ministry, there's just so much connectedness between young people of different dioceses and sharing of resources. So, we might do something in KL, but, young people from Miri, Cebu, Kuching would join us, and we would join, something happening in Kuching. So in that sense, there's a greater sharing of resources and lesser repetition, I would say, So we are sort of allowing the different groups to have their space and be what they are good at, and we all come and learn from them. So those are some of the good things. So there's just so much going on, and in 2025, we are hoping and praying to have the first Malaysian Young People's Assembly. Young people, parents, please stay tuned to that. So there's greater collaboration on this front. And all of this, there'll be work, going towards that in the next 2 years. So please look out for those things.
And yeah, Jacinta, I mean, when you say youth officer, so you are saying that every diocese here in Malaysia has got a youth office,
Yeah.
and parishes can contact their youth officers if they need help. I would assume that would be a
Yes.
service that is offered. How do we get those? How do we get those contact details? Is there a website that we can go to? People could go to. Our viewers could go to who are looking for those kind of links.
Yes, so I think we wrote about it recently in the Herald, but you could look for something called MCYMC. It's a mouthful, but it's our Youth Ministers Committee of Malaysia. So we have an email, and we're even in the Catholic directory. I think that's the best place to find our information. Every diocese sort of has their contact information there. At the moment, we are working on a collective website, Father. But I think if you go to individual diocesan websites, there'll always be the youth section and you will find information. But in any case, if anyone is looking and maybe you could only find Asayo at the moment because of the availability of the website, you can just send us an email and we will update you and connect you. So asayokl.my, that's our website. Yes.
All right, just two more things, Jacinta, before we let you go.
That's fine.
Just one thing. Now, here in our urban setting, in the city area, we have a lot of students who are coming. Sometimes parents are concerned about the young people coming here, getting lost in the city. Is there a service that the youth officers provide for parents to connect their children who are coming here for higher studies,
Yes.
and to see to their spiritual need as much as they provide for their intellectual needs?
Yes. So on our website, we have this check-in feature where either a young person or someone can check in on behalf of a young person. So you give us some of their contact details. So for example, if a young person from Miri or Bintulu is coming to KL, so the parent can just fill up the information and then someone from our office will connect with them. In the same way, if you're from KL and you're going to Penang, let's say, for work or study, just fill up the same thing and we will give the information to the Penang Diocese and the youth workers there would contact your young person. So, but I would also advise parents to sort of encourage your children. It's just a Google away to find out the nearest church from your university or place of work, wherever they are going. Just to, if we don't know you are coming, it'll be hard for us to know you are there. So I would say that's important. So if you have friends or family who's moving around, try to tell them to check in with their youth office, so that we can reach out to them. It will sort of help us, to do better for them and serve them better. Yeah.
And the second one is, of course, the excitement is World Youth Day, isn't it?
Yes,
It's always
yes.
excitement. Tell us, where is the next World Youth Day? Are you going?
The next World Youth Day is next year in August. It will be happening in Lisbon. So because of the post-pandemic climate that we are in, I think the organizers are being very cautious and they haven't really released very much details. More details will be coming soon in October or maybe November. And the National Youth Desk, which we are sending 2 representatives for this meeting that will happen. So please look out for more details. So please, there's a post on Asayo's Instagram and Asayo's social media that we are trying to collect interest for the young people who want to go, so that we can give these numbers to the organizers in Lisbon. So do fill that up if you're interested. So those are registering under the different dioceses. More details are to come. So these will be coming soon in the next few months. So yes.
Okay, that's good. That's really good support. I particularly like the support that you mentioned, the check-in feature, because it's something that is also in my mind, and I spoke to a few of our young people, our youth pastoral workers, about this ability, so it's fantastic that the Archdiocese has come up with that. Maybe final words, Jacinta, what would you like to say to our young people who are tuned in this morning?
Okay, wow. So I have a lot of things to say, but I just want to say this thing that the Holy Father said, like you are not the future, you are the now. You are the now of God, you are the now of the church. The church is here for you, the church wants you. When you feel hesitant to come, take that extra step and just come. There's no one that doesn't want you. Like, you are infinitely loved by God and by the church, and no matter what happens, there's a space for you, and sometimes it may not be the way that you expect or think, but please show us, the animators, the leaders, the people of the church, what it is. Be patient with us, journey with us. We also want to journey with you. And youth ministries, don't give up. I know it's difficult starting up, but make sure your information is out there for your young people to know, to find you. Be visible at mass, stand outside church and talk to some young people, approach one person a week. Do these things that you might think, oh, it doesn't garner a lot of results, but no, this one interaction a week, it will mean a lot. Yeah. So final many words, Patrick.
I
Thank
think
you very
it's
much.
really awesome.
Yeah.
It's really
Thank you
awesome,
very
and I
much,
think it really.
for taking time to be with us this morning. From your busy schedule, I know you're very busy, and you've joined us to have this conversation. Hopefully, this is a little stepping stone for youth ministries in the parishes to not give up. If you need help, contact Asayo, contact Jacinta. I'm sure the details are online. Contact your diocesan youth offices. I'm sure they will assist you. Don't give up. The struggle is continuous. We still have to keep on going. And
Yes.
to all those others who are sometimes disappointed with the church, don't give up on the church. The church is bigger than what somebody says, including priests. For that matter, at the end of the day, it's Christ, and Christ loves us all, and Christ welcomes us all, and we are all broken and need to be mended by God. And so to find the space in God. Thank you very much, Jacinta, for sharing
My
your
pleasure.
own journey, your own experience, and really, it's amazing that young people like you decide to give up everything in the corporate world and to work for other young people. And we thank you for your dedication, and to many other youth pastoral workers who are out there who give themselves totally to this ministry.
Yes.
Yeah. Before we conclude, as usually I say the prayer today, I'm going to empower the youth. I'm going to empower Jacinta to say the concluding prayer for us.
Yes, Father, with pleasure. It's a privilege to pray. And we pray together in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you for your goodness and mercy, Lord, that we experience this through your young people, most especially, Lord. We thank you for the gift of Father Clarence, Patrick, and the entire team that have continued this journey even after the pandemic to give us all good content and good conversation. Lord, we ask you this very day in this very special way to empower our young people, to bring those that are hesitant, to give those some solace, those that need it, Lord, to bring them closer to you, and to fulfill that need, Lord, for encounter with you. And we make this prayer in your most precious name. Amen.
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 Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Father. Thank you,
Thank you,
Patrick.
Jacinta.
Thanks, Jacinta. So, Jacinta mentioned thanks to the team. We just wanted to do a shout out to Alex in the back office, and also to Mark. Mark Lee actually was one of the award winners last night for the APIS Award at Agency of the Year 2022. So, you want to congratulate Mark and his team, for this excellent award that they won at the Ad Agency Awards night.
Wow, not bad lah. Our Catholics at Home team got top award winners. So we have Mark as our representative to produce this. Congratulations, Mark, and to all your team members.
And Father, you want to give a special shout out for next week's special edition.
So not special edition, our usual edition, our usual installment, as you call it. So there's a lot of talk about general elections, GE coming around. We hear on social media, we hear people talking about it, politicians mentioning, debating. So next week we're going to talk a little bit about GE 15, and why bother going to vote? So it's interesting to have this conversation. We have two renowned people who will speak to us. Thomas Fan, who is the chairperson for Bersih, and we also have Professor Wong, a political scientist known here in Malaysia, who will also be on the panel to speak to us. I think sometimes we are at this phase where people are just fed up. People are just fed up with what's happening in politics and say, I don't want to go out to vote. Maybe something to think about, and also to look at it from a faith perspective. But don't forget, next week we are starting at 9:30 and not our usual 10:30. So just mark this in your calendar, please. Next Saturday we are coming on live at 9:30. And you have any questions? You have this whole week to prepare yourself to write down questions if you want to ask Thomas or Professor Wong. And to be able to get some answers that you have been looking for, or even that you have been having these conversations with your friends. So don't forget, next Saturday, 9:30 a.m.
All right.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Father. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for hosting today. Thanks, Jacinta. And also, thank you to all our faithful viewers and those of you who have joined us this morning. We hope that we will be able to engage a lot more with our young people at our parishes and at diocese level. And we hope and pray that everybody will be able to join us next week, earlier, 9:30, for another installment of Catholics at Home. Take care and God bless.
Bye, everyone. Have a good week.